is we've got to take it back to its bare bones, because ultimately, if you're going to have prescription charges and you live in an inflationary environment, then the prices are going to go up. My difficulty with all of this is actually that the prescription charge bears no relation to the cost of the drugs, and also it seems to be a little bit cack-handed in terms of how it's meted out. So 90% of people don't pay for them, fair enough, if you've got exemptions, and then 10% do. But I think part of the problem here is that if you are of a working age and if you are reasonably of means, how on earth do we get more contributions into the NHS, and how do we make sure that things are paid for? Because if you have a look at the overall bill for medical equipment and drugs and various other things, it's £18.5 billion a year. So the few hundred million that you mention in terms of what prescriptions raise, it's kind of a drop in the ocean. But more particularly, it doesn't bear any relation to the cost of the drug. So I think we've got to strip this apart, and we've got to have a proper debate in our country about who should pay for healthcare, who shouldn't, how do we manage the NHS most effectively, and also based on need. And it's not a want. Everybody wants free prescriptions. I understand that. But the thing is that I don't think we as a nation can afford it, because you say it's free. It's not free. Somebody's got to pay for it. So the question is, where should that fall and where should that lie? Are working people the best people to tap into this? Yes. But quite how we've ended up with 90% of people getting it free, when there are probably quite a lot of people getting them free, and there are plenty of over 60s who could afford it.
Hold on, I don't know whether well, that's an interesting point, but I don't think it's 90% of people get them for free. I think it's the amount, the prescriptions that are handed over the counter, 90% of them are free, 10% are paid for. Marina, how do you feel about this? I mean, £600 million is a lot, actually. If you're not willing to hand them out for free, it's a lot of money for the NHS.
So in an ideal world, I would say all prescriptions should be free. But I also agree that we have got an ageing and ailing population. So something needs to be done to make sure this is financially viable for us to, we've got a declining birth rate. Who is paying for all this? I'd say there does need to be maybe an element of means testing that does come into this. What I would say, though, is didn't we just drop... This is the Tory trickonomics that comes into it. So national insurance, they just dropped that by 2p, right? And then do you see how they then managed to claw back in other areas by raising prescription charges by 3%? So it's like taking with one hand and giving away with another.
I don't think you can compare the two. I mean, I understand.
It goes into... National insurance goes towards paying for the NHS and social care, right?
Tax.
So it's still a pool of money going towards something.
Yeah, but then isn't this more fair then? So you're charging people of a working age that can afford it, technically.
This is my concern.
And that are using the NHS.
So this affordability thing. So yes, people with low incomes don't pay for prescriptions, but that benchmark for low income is actually not that high. My concern is because of the cost of living crisis, every single outgoing is going up. Everything. And this is just another thing. And for some of these people, we're talking about like HRT going up, we're talking about wigs going up, we're talking about surgical bras going up. These people don't choose to be sick. They don't choose to have to take these medications. And so it does feel very much like a tax on vulnerable people in the worst environment to do this. Everything is going up. Wages are stagnant or going down. So... But
then where I understand all of that, but the other thing that we've got to consider is, well, where do you get the money from?
So firstly, I think the threshold has to be increased.
Yes, so, possibly.
And then I think...
Would you dare to go into, because I would you dare to go into the over 60s? So, for example, we've raised the pension age, and yet we haven't raised the age at which you get free prescriptions. So, for example, you're over 60, you're getting all the free transport. I don't understand why people of a working age or who've got plenty of income are getting free transport and you might say, well, they're contributed for many years, and then free prescriptions and healthcare. To my mind, it seems absolutely nuts that you've got people who are perfectly able to pay and should be paying,
James,
and then
we're in agreement.
Well, look at this. Hallelujah. That hasn't happened ever.
I know.
God, my mum's have been corrupted. Something's gone wrong. Computer says no.
Because of how poorly the economy has been mismanaged, we do have to really look at where we put our money. And if people can afford to pay for things, and by that I don't mean squeeze them so that they're having to make decisions between, can I afford this healthcare or not? I just about can, and making them make those awkward decisions. I think we actually have to go, okay, these people are very comfortable. But
also,
I'm very happy.
Can I just throw something else into the mix, though? That £300 million a year is lost by the NHS as a result of, and it's not necessarily by them, but the NHS loses £300 million a year in wasted drugs. So we have to find a way to have a better conversation about reducing waste.
What do we mean by wasting drugs?
So it's drugs that have gone out of date, things that they haven't bought correctly, things that haven't been used because they've prescribed too many and people haven't taken them, all sorts of stuff. So we have to be more careful about how we spend our money. And I know it's not a very sexy thing to discuss. And I know that everybody just says, oh, it'll be solved if you throw more money at it. We've done that. The NHS have received increase, regardless of whether it's enough or not. They've increased real terms increases every single year, and things have got worse. We've got massive amounts of...
Why do you think that is, though? Do you think that might be down to the fact that people, maybe there's not enough time to do proper diagnostics and people are just throw some medicine at it?
They've spent money in the wrong ways. I think, for example, the fact that we've allowed our GP system to collapse means that we're putting too much pressure on A&E. It means that A&E isn't working effectively, which means that hospitals don't work efficiently. We've also got too many people doing management jobs and effing and jeffing their way around and doing things which are not appropriate. And we've got wastage like this, which is procedures. So, for example, we've got a 5-2 NHS, so it's working 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, but people aren't ill Monday to Friday. Many other jobs. So I work in an industry which is 7 days a week, and they've found a way to make sure that people are doing shifts. They're not doing shifts.
7 days a week.
It is, but the way it's staffed and the way that hospitals are staffed is not 7 days a week. For example, we're not doing operations 7 days a week. We've got a chronic shortage of... so we should be looking at 4 3-day shifts, all sorts of patterns. You can pay people effectively to do these things, to use the facilities that we have better.
Just going back to your first statement where you completely poo-pooed having prescriptions for free, which they are in the rest of the UK. How on earth can Scotland afford it, Wales afford it?
Well, they can't.
Northern Ireland, well, they are affording it, they are free.
Yeah, but the thing is that when you say free, it means that somebody's paying for them somewhere. I think that I then took apart the system and I said the system at the moment that we have is bonkers, because there are so many exemptions that it seems actually a little bit unfair that the people right in the middle are getting these free prescriptions, and then people who are of means are also getting freebies. So I just think that we need to untangle the whole of the NHS in terms of how it's funded, how it's organised, depoliticise it somehow, I wish, and work out how we get better value for money. Because at the moment, I think that too much of what we spend is being wasted in some shape or form.
You say depoliticised, but I will say that actually most people, wherever they sit on the political spectrum, support the NHS.
I think they definitely are, and I certainly do.
But there's plenty of people that come on the show that talk about restructuring the NHS as well, which was not really what we wanted.
But interestingly enough, Wes Streeting has said it really needs to be done.
And Wes Streeting, for me, is potentially a bit of a dodgy apple to keep an eye on in the Labour Party.